Good evening, everyone, and welcome to RFL. I am Richard French. Thank you for joining us. And we start tonight with the aftermath of the Paris terror attacks. Now, just today, exactly a week after Paris militants attacked, we have another attack, this time at a hotel in Mali, killing more than 20 people. The spate of terror causing police departments across the globe and in the U.S. to ratchet up security in case copycats are out there. And the FBI closely watching suspected radicals. Marcy Gonzalez has more.
Candles illuminate the scenes of one of Paris's darkest days. 1 week after the chaos and carnage, a peaceful, somber remembrance of the victims. A reflection tonight, too, from the deputy who led the team that took down the attack's so-called mastermind, describing the dramatic scene Wednesday as officers raided the terror cell's hideout in the suburbs of Paris.
One of them was shooting, and another one was sending grenades through the windows or the door.
One of the suspects detonating a suicide vest. But the battle in this building on the verge of collapse continued.
I went downstairs, see pieces of someone, and we knew that they could do it again against us.
The officers all survived, and now investigators say 3 suspects were killed. A man who still hasn't been identified, this woman, Hasna Eitbul Hassan, and her cousin, Abdelhamid Abaoud, the accused ISIS ringleader behind the terror attacks. The raid taking down at least part of a terror cell investigators believe was ready to strike again. And police still looking for at least 2 other suspects, carried out nearly 190 searches overnight and took 17 people into custody. Marcy Gonzalez, ABC News, Paris.
Now, the attacks here have fueled an intense political debate, and as we all know, we are in the throes of the campaign season. And as usual, we can always rely on Donald Trump to get right into the middle of it. Now, listen to what he said about how he would treat Muslims in the wake of Paris.
There should be a lot of systems beyond database. I mean, we should have a lot of systems, and today you can do it.
But that's something your White House would like to implement.
Oh, I would certainly implement that. Absolutely.
Specifically, how do you actually get them registered into a database?
It would be just good management. What you have to do is good management procedures.
And again, so if you lost that, he wants to create a registry for Muslims, American citizens who happen to be of the Muslim faith. He believes there should be a registry of them. And we'll talk in a little bit. That harkens to a different time and a very scary era. And to how to handle Syrian refugees, also a very hot button topic. We talked about this week at length here. We told you yesterday about the fight on Capitol Hill and how Congress is battling the president and trying to crack down big time when it comes to refugees. Now, that debate continues. It's also a big issue closer to home. Here's what New Jersey Governor Chris Christie just had to say.
What if they were orphans under the age of 5?
You know, Hugh, we could come up with 18 different scenarios. The fact is that we need appropriate vetting, and I don't think orphans under 5 are being, should be admitted into the United States at this point.
And that set up for political football. Bill de Blasio going after him, holding off that iconic photo of the child who drowned that was one of the refugees. We've seen Governors Malloy, Governors Cuomo weighing in as well here, and nationally, more governors than not opposing refugees to come into their states. All right, let's bring in our panel right now. Scott Vanderhoff, attorney, former 5-term Rockland County executive, and Republican strategist Bill O'Reilly joins us as well here. And to his right, Andrew Whitman, as always, senior political correspondent. All right, guys, listen, I think there's a legitimate conversation. As much as I happen to agree with what the president had to say, I don't think you have to be a radical to have questions about the refugee process, about people coming into the country in the wake of Paris. I think we need to have a full-throated conversation. I think it doesn't make you a bad person to feel one way or the other on the issue. But then, and always seemingly is the case, somebody on the political trail will take it further. And Donald Trump talking about a registry, there was a follow-up question we didn't have time for, but somebody said, well, tell me the distinction between what the Nazis had in terms of registry for Jews. And he chose not to ask the question other than what media outlet they were from. But again, it put Republicans in a box. Now, every Republican candidate's going to have to answer, do you believe in a registry for Muslims? And I guarantee you one of them is going to agree with Donald Trump. And then it puts the whole party once again on the defense when they seem to have at least a platform to have a debate about what to do about refugees, even if I disagreed with them philosophically.
Well, it's, to use the pun, it's trumping each other to see who could be more outlandish and get some exposure. They're all over the place. The gang can't shoot straight for the most part. Both those two guys are not, I think, are just simply trying to make some news. Trump does not know what he's talking about, okay? And after a while, he's going to be dismissed as such, I'm sure of that. But in the meantime, he comes out with these outlandish things. I mean, it's off the cuff. But America does not stand for things like that. That's not what we are,
but
registries.
Scott, the primary voter in the Republican base, Trump's numbers have gone up in the last week marginally. I don't want to read too much into it, Bill. It's November. We're a year away. I'll do all the disqualifiers. Yeah. Carson's down. Cruz is up. It seems to be the more red meat you throw out there, the better you do. And Iowa and New Hampshire are not that far away. To that end, I thought this was a political issue that Republicans, if they handled it the right way, could have made some hay. Because I think many people saw just the isolated clips from the president, and he came off as just angry, irritated by the very subject of it. And I thought if they handled it the right way, they could have done something with it. Now it seems this could be hijacked from them as an issue from the Trumps and the Cruzes of the world.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's really amazing how quickly this went from a terrorism issue back to an immigration debate.
Yep.
Like, that's Trump's strength, and it came right back to the immigration debate, but now with Syrian refugees. Trump really, and he's trying to walk back the comments now, saying that the reporter put it in his mouth, that type of thing. But I think everyone heard what he said. He's really walking on dangerous ground here, and yes, he's getting away with it. He'll get away with it. There will be a segment that says, hey, that's a good idea, and that's a really frightening thing.
Billy, it's an emotional response by the public. Anger, visceral reactions. Just go with the guy who seems nastiest and roughest. Don't you agree? I mean, it seems to me that's how they're going with Trump. But it's going to settle. I mean, he cannot be that way. I don't see how he.
But in the interim, Andrew, well, history certainly is on Scott's side that it tends to settle, and the 15 minutes or the half an hour or the hour that Trump's had here eventually will fade. At least institutional logic says so. In the interim, he hijacks what was a conversation. Now, you and I happen to feel strongly when you look at the facts, if people bother to look at them, it's an 18 to 24-month wait for any refugee coming into the country. And the idea that people are saying a 3-year-old kid, an orphan here, treat him the same way as you would anybody else, that I don't think is what America's about. But rather than even going down there, which is where I thought we were going to go in this conversation tonight, the Trumps and the Cruzes and the rest have dictated this, and isn't that what the base wants?
I think it is what the base wants, and what's one of the reasons why I don't think it hurts Donald Trump to go as far as he does is because the people who already support him are the ones who would sort of enthusiastically go to that place of anger anyway. So I don't think it's going to cost him any vote. I mean, it might cost him potential votes from people who aren't supporting him right now, but it's not going to cost him to lose any part of his base already. Look, we always overreact to things like this. We always do, and in the aftermath of 9/11, whether it was things like the Patriot Act that went too far, or the invasion of Iraq, we wind up with regrets on these things after the fact. After World War II, the Japanese internment, or the denial of Jews into this country who are trying to escape from Nazi Germany. We always wind up overreacting, and there's always a percentage of the political population that feeds into that overreaction and plays into it. I'm not surprised that Republicans are doing that, and I'm not surprised that they're succeeding at doing that and stoking that anger. It's not. Part of it is playing off the fear of terror and terror attacks in the United States, and part of it is, it doesn't matter how many bits of verification that we have before these refugees come into the country. The argument from a lot of the Republicans is that Obama can't vet these people because it's Obama's problem. I don't trust him, so we need to overhaul the entire system.
Bill, in a funny way, I think this is Ryan's first test, and I think if you look at the poll numbers. And 31 governors are in lockstep that they don't want these Syrian refugees in. I think he can score a political victory and get the president to capitulate a little bit if he plays this right. If it's a threat of a shutdown or whatever else, he's going to overplay his hand like predecessors here. Yeah. Can he navigate that while the Freedom Caucus and the rest are going to pull in different directions?
I think Ryan can, because Ryan's been given the carte blanche to lead. I mean, he's got the agreement of all factions within the Congress. I mean, but you're exactly right here, Richard, is that the president made a mistake here. He went too far. There are legitimate security concerns that can be discussed here. And the fact that he did it from foreign shores irks me a little bit, but that's maybe my own thing. But he was open here. Republicans had an opportunity here, and Trump came and screwed it up, frankly. And you're absolutely right on that. I hope that Paul Ryan will bring some sense here. You can bring Syrian refugees in and guarantee the safety. Like it's a good call to look at the protocols and make sure that they're right and make sure that they're safe. You can pause it, that's fine. The Republicans are on safe ground there. But when you start talking about registering people by religion.
And you know what's funny? The guy that I'm going to look for that's going to tell me where this is going to go, believe it or not, is Chuck Schumer, who seems to have, regardless of whether you like or don't like his politics, he's never the last one holding the bag. He seemed amenable to maybe even a pause or maybe even a re-examination of it. If he reads the political winds here that he thinks they're going to go too far, he'll quickly get back on the administration side. If you see him hold back here, I think that means that Ryan's whipping some guys into shape for something practical. It's just a thought. Now, as always, everybody, we want you involved in our conversation, and we want you to head over to Facebook and Twitter and sound off on a question here tonight. Has Donald Trump finally gone too far with this Muslim database? Is this the point where we're going to say too far, or just like so many other cases before, never mind? All right, coming up next, we'll go live to Manhattan, the Skelos trial kicking into high gear as prosecutors dig into the relationship with the former Senate Majority Leader and his son Adam. Was this just a dad trying to look out for a kid, or was it ripe with corruption and the so-called quid pro quo? Dominic Carter, he's in downtown Manhattan. He's also covering the Shelley Silver trial. We'll have an update on both after this.